How to shift out of the old and into the new is the topic of today's Soul Sovereignty and Sexuality podcast with myself, Jessica Falcon, international soul healer and embodiment guide. So, with the new year, we also have a new moon. It's really important to sit with where have I been? What am I releasing? And where am I choosing to go? Now, we can sit with this any time of the year, of course, but we can ritualize moments like a turning of the year to consciously create the new. Because if we are not consciously creating the new, if we're not sitting with and attuning to our soul desires and where we want to go, we're never going to get there. If we are not creating the frequency shifts, taking the action to move toward what we desire. Now, when we want to create something new, the biggest thing we have to do is let go of the old, let go of the familiar, let go of the thoughts, of the beliefs, even of the emotions and feelings that have kept us locked into an old way of being. One really powerful way to do this is to focus on releasing your habitual patterns. How do we release habit? So habit is pretty common. So think about what you do when you get up in the morning. You probably have a routine. Maybe you reach for the same cup every day. Maybe you eat the same food. Maybe you walk the same path. Maybe you do the same thing at the gym, right? We all create these habits and these routines, and there's nothing wrong with routine, particularly when you make it a ritual that you're choosing. However, what happens is that if we are consistently doing the same thing over and over, thinking the same thought, choosing the same thing to do or to eat, we're creating these grooves in the brain. And if we want to shift into the new, we have to get out of the old groove, out of the old thought, out of the old habit, and consciously create a new one. Now, the only way to come out of habit is to be present, to be conscious of what you are doing. So the cultivation of embodied presence is how we become conscious of what we're doing and why. So for a habit, let's talk about shifting out of old habits. So you get up in the morning and you're reaching for your cup to have coffee or tea. Do you reach for the same thing? Are you consciously looking at the cups available and saying, which one do I want this morning? Which one draws to me now? The plate you choose. What do I want to eat? Instead of just reaching unconsciously for the thing you always eat. Maybe looking in the fridge, looking in the cabinet. What does my body want this morning? What actually feels the most nourishing to me? What do I want now? Not what do I think I want? What am I used to having? What do I actually want now? What does my body want? What am I feeling called for or to? When you're going on a walk, going on a different path, taking a different route, following the body's direction to the left, even though you normally go to the right, paying attention to your surroundings, seeing things as if they're brand new. It's like when people say, sunset, no big deal. I've seen that before. You can tell they're not fully alive. Because when you're fully alive and you're fully present, everything always looks anew and different. And your state is different. Your eyes are opening to see what is truly in front of you instead of the thing you've seen before. So start to notice these little ways that you rely on habit to get through the day, because what you're doing is you are literally shifting out of old grooves in the brain to create the space to create new. You have to create space to create new. This could even be as simple as if you habitually throw your trash in the trash can to the right, move the trash can to the left, and you will notice very quickly how often you still reach for the right out of habit versus consciously being aware, oh, it's actually on the left now. It's going to feel uncomfortable because guess what? When you're shifting out of old grooves, you're going to feel uncomfortable. The nervous system might be a little challenged because you are shifting your nervous system by shifting your consciousness, by shifting out of these old habits, by bringing presence into the moment. You cannot change or create a new without feeling discomfort. That's the reality. I teach yoga. I teach online portal yoga classes. I teach at retreat centers. I teach yoga when I lead my own retreats. And one thing is very clear that I often talk about is that yoga is very good for teaching us how to sit in the discomfort instead of running away from it. For example, I taught this morning and we were doing a deep lunge pose. Most of us sit a lot. We tend to have tight hips, right? So we have to breathe into the hip flexors and we have to breathe into the discomfort. If you want to open and create space in your hips, for example, you have to breathe into this is uncomfortable. This doesn't feel good. This is really intense and stay in it and keep breathing. That will be the only thing that creates space in your hips is if you breathe into them, into the tension, because we want to run away from the tension. We want to get out of it. Okay, well, I'm done. I'm going to get out of this pose. I'm going to get out of this thing that makes me uncomfortable. I'm going to shift out of this feeling that I don't like. I'm just going to ignore that thought or suppress it. I'm going to make myself comfortable instead of consciousness, presence, and the body. I'm choosing to breathe in to this discomfort because I'm devoted to where it will take me. I'm devoted to the result, which is the actual opening in this particular example of the hip. I want free, open hips. I have to breathe into the tension so that it releases. It's the same thing for the mind. It's the same thing for every other part of your body. It's the same thing for an emotion. Transformation is not easy. Transformation is not comfortable. That's why most people live the same type of life and do the same type of things and are not fully alive. If you want to be fully alive and vibrant and you want to change and shift and consciously create the life that you desire, it requires a lot of discomfort. And so the key is to train yourself not to reach for the comfort. It's the same when you're healing from an addictive pattern, for example, not to reach for the comfort, not to reach for the familiar, not to reach for the known, which the nervous system wants and the mind wants. But guess what? Your soul, your consciousness is stronger than all of that. You have the capacity to not be slave to your nervous system or slave to your past or slave to that need to reach. You are greater than all of that. You have the capacity to source within, to train yourself to create new grooves, to train your nervous system, to find safety in another way, to find power in another way. Because what is discomfort? Discomfort. I don't know. Feels uncomfortable, right? Not knowing, not being able to reach, not being able to lean in, not being able to let go feels uncomfortable. Intensity often feels uncomfortable for people. So, okay, you feel uncomfortable. Breathe into it. And keep breathing. and bring your awareness and bring your consciousness. I'm choosing this. And that thing that I would reach for to feel that way, I can cultivate that inside. I can face the pain instead. I can bring consciousness to the reason I am reaching. What if I developed the capacity to lean into me and my knowing and my truth and my inner peace instead of needing to lean into that external thing to create safety? So the more you cultivate internal safety, which is a huge piece of the work I do with my clients one-on-one, when you cultivate and create that inner safety, you become king or queen of your own domain. You have the capacity to create greater shifts in your life and your relationships and your work and your body and how you show up in the world, because you're leaning into you instead of reaching for that thing. One of the things I find the most important in this breaking the habit, becoming aware, sitting in discomfort, not reaching, turning within, creating that inner safety, creating the capacity to breathe into discomfort, being with the thing that you're wanting to reach away from, like the tension, for example, in the hip pose, is that there is the consciousness and a decision, which I believe comes from the heart soul, that this thing that I desire, this thing that I am now devoted to, this transformation you want, this new life you want, I am more devoted to that. I'm so devoted to that that I'm willing to move through all of the discomfort to get there, because you know that thing is worth it. This could even be applied to a relationship. Say you've been struggling in a relationship. Most people are beholden to very old, ingrained, and inherited patterns of relating to each other, which is why most of us don't experience freedom in relationship, because of the grip that these old patterns have on the mind, on the patterns that we have and bring to relationship with others. So another key piece of my work, right, is bringing light into these patterns, shifting out of them, tuning to your soul truth. If you want to do this in a particular situation where maybe you have a deep truth you need to share with your partner, something that's really been bothering you, but you've been afraid. And so your habit is to silence yourself. Your habit is to tuck it deep down inside. Your habit is to just say it's okay. Your habit is not to confront it. Your habit is to avoid conflict. But you want an intimate relationship with your partner. Guess what? Those things are incompatible. You cannot have an intimate relationship with your partner and silence your truth. It's not possible. So if this thing that you desire, the intimate relationship, is something you are devoted to, then it requires you sit in the discomfort of maybe the anger, maybe the frustration, be with it consciously. It requires that you consciously, from your heart, express that to the other person, to give them the capacity to hear you, to give them the capacity to choose whether or not they can meet you in that way or honor your request. You have to give them choice. And then you have to sit in the discomfort of the tension that might be created in that conversation. And you're willing to be uncomfortable and to be in a potential conflict. And you're willing to be uncomfortable because you are so devoted to the intimacy that you are going to create in the relationship. You are devoted to that freedom within yourself that you are creating by speaking your truth. It's the devotion that takes precedence over the discomfort. And this is how we move through it. We also have to do the inner work to attune to the person that we desire to become, or to attune to the energy of that thing we desire to bring into our life. And this is the third key piece. Now, there's, of course, more to consciously creating the new, doing a whole weekend retreat where we're really consciously releasing the past energetically and emotionally, attuning to the soul truth and moving into the embodiment of the one that we are becoming, right? The embodiment of the desire. And if you want to join us, there are a couple spots left. We're about half full. So you can just go to thepathtosovereignty.com. We're meeting on January 10th through the 12th in Hot Springs, North Carolina. And for the purpose of this conversation today, what I'd like you to focus on is asking yourself, what is the energy that I can cultivate within myself that is in alignment with the person who already has that thing I desire, that is in alignment with the person I am becoming? If your habit, as an example, is to go to the store and always buy the cheapest thing. For example, you like pasta, but you buy the cheapest one or only the one that's on sale. You like chocolate and you always buy the cheapest bar or only the one that's on sale. But the one you really want, maybe it's $1 or $2 more, you don't take it because, oh, it's, quote, more expensive. So you take the one you don't actually want and you're trying to bring more abundance into your life. Guess what? You're operating out of scarcity, but you're telling yourself, I'm bringing in more abundance. There's an energetic dissonance. So if you are cultivating more abundance in your life, but you're telling yourself you can't have what you want, you're saying, no, I can't afford that. No, I can't have that. No, I'll just settle for less. You are not shifting into the energetic state of abundance that allows you to have what you actually desire. So you have to cultivate that frequency of abundance within yourself and make choices that are in alignment with that so that you are embodying the energy of what you desire versus waiting for something external to come to give you that sense. Because quite frankly, abundance, for example, it's an internal state that you cultivate. You could have $5 in your bank account and feel incredibly abundant because you've cultivated the state of gratitude and abundance and joy, aliveness in your body, your life force, your vitality, your radiance, versus somebody who has $1 million in their bank account, who is in scarcity and in lack and always fighting and scrambling and depleted life force. Who's more abundant? Certainly not the one who's dead inside. So we cultivate the energy of what we desire and we devote to that cultivation in the small actions and the small choices. This is where that presence comes in so that you're not acting out of habit, you're acting out of choice. You're acting out of the new, not the old energy. And this is how you consciously create the new, how you shift out of the old into the new. I hope it's helpful. I'm going to talk more next week about how to heal the old trauma, right? Which is often holding people back. So tune in next week to that episode. And if you want to join us for the retreat, the New Year, New You retreat, go to thepathtosovereignty.com. I'll put the link below. You do need to register by January 7th. And you can also receive a free 30-minute sovereignty breakthrough session with me if you want to dive into this on a personal level and receive that energetic, emotional, embodied support to shift out of the old and into the new you. Lots of love.